Not sure what a corporation is. I mean, we're talking about it as a dead thing, and I think it is. It's sort of it's vampiric, right? It exists beyond human lifetimes, which then makes, in fact, the corporations the problem, not the internet. and the corporations are a medieval invention. They sort of created these business entities back in the Middle Ages. Maybe they are vampires. They're medieval.
They're that old. They won't die.
Some of them are.
This is a really interesting problem, because we have the internet, which really is very, very complicated postal route. I mean, it could be looked at like that. What we're sending is really complicated data, but essentially it is letters. It's just got sound and visuals with it as well. So we're basically in multi-sensorial postal route altogether, with people sending various things across the roads of the internet with all the traffic that goes on. And it is appropriately called traffic, internet traffic, which is a commercial term. How we can deal with it, I'm just thinking of a few things. People are scared to be attacked by the advertisers. They're scared of the public relations power of the advertisers, the facelessness of the advertisers, the fact that they are corporations and you're not battling individuals, you're battling these undead entities which have particular legal properties that flesh and blood human beings don't have. But it's not so terrifying if I think about it in the sense of how the church operates in an environment which is now dominated by advertising. Because it's very similar to what was going on with the Roman Empire. I remember you posted that thing, and it was the Mediterranean and all of the shipping traffic that was going on during the Roman Empire, and how when the empire collapsed, the shipping collapsed also. Right. So suddenly there was this enormous dive in traffic and an enormous dive in technological capacity. I think we're at the stage now where the ships, the traffic, with digital traffic, the advertisers are pushing people to this crisis point where everybody has to decide the limits of what they're going to allow advertisers to demand in terms of manipulating the mimetic desire versus deciding that we're going to follow our traditional cultures and our religions in spite of the advertising, the advertisers pushing us away from that. This is the challenge that we have now, because everybody is talking about communism and socialism and, oh, it's terrible. The conversation in Australia has been, oh, well, you all wanted socialism, you got it. We're not living in socialism. We're living in a cultural environment where private companies, corporations have linked up with various government departments, and we have public-private partnerships, and the corporations are deciding cultural taboos, dogma, social attitudes, and pushing everybody to think that there is a social consensus which doesn't exist. One example would be on the drag queen story hour that everyone has been adopting now after it's been in America for a long time. The majority of the population here are not in agreement with this. It's a minority thing, a radical minority that want to have these events running. The majority of the population don't want them at all. But it's being proposed through corporate advertising that this is now normative when it's not. People are going to have to come to the point where they are recognizing that our cultural narrative is separate to the market narrative. I think this is why the Tucker thing is interesting. He's talking about spirituality, and that's what's annoying everybody.
But this is a spiritual problem. Midwestern Doctor quotes RFK Jr., who's talking about how people don't trust the media now. This is why this is a problem. And this is Kennedy. That when the media and, the corporate captive media and corporate captive government sees other sources of truth, they have to brand those misinformation because they threaten their paradigm. They threaten their orthodoxy. And of course, there's a lot of genuine misinformation. It's an interesting question. So it's like, is there misinformation when you're just trying to get people to buy something that they don't want? It's just misinformation. You don't need that. But as we know, a lot of the misinformation is just statements from that depart from government orthodoxy. Tucker was talking about how, I used to think that we were in this parliamentary style democracy where you debate the spending of the tax money, right? You have different proposals and you debate about that, and that's what government's about. And of course, that's not what it feels like it's about now. It's something different. And so telling the truth, as he says, turns into this thing. I would say two things that I think we're thinking about. The first is you look around and you see so many people break under the strain, under the downward pressure of whatever this is that we're going through. And you look with disdain and sadness as you see people become quislings. You see them revealed as cowards, and you see them going along with a new thing, which is clearly a poisonous thing, a silly thing, saying things they don't believe because they want to keep their jobs. If there's a single person in this room who hasn't seen through that George Floyd and COVID and the Ukraine war, raise your hand. He's at the Heritage Foundation in this one. Oh, nobody? Right. You all know what I'm talking about. The herd instinct is a very strong impulse, and you're so disappointed in people. You are, and you realize that the herd instinct is maybe the strongest instinct. I mean, it may be stronger than the hunger and sex instincts, actually. The instinct, which is, again, is inherent to be like everybody else and not to be cast out of the group, not to be shunned. That's a very strong impulse in all of us from birth, and it takes over, unfortunately, in moments like this. And it's harnessed, in fact, by bad people in moments like this to produce uniformity. And you see people going along with this and you lose respect for them, and that certainly happened to me at scale over the past 3 years. I'm not mad at people, I'm just sad, I'm disappointed. How could you go along with this? You know it's not true, but you're saying it anyway. It makes a lot of sense if it's just a court culture, which we could say that is a human, that has been the feature of human history all along. It's like there's an inner group of very, very wealthy, connected people that then worry about each other, and everybody else starves.
So that is what happens. But we're in post-Christian culture now. So at the same time, everybody's expected to behave as though they're Christians, as though they have some kind of Christian morality.
It's social agreement. I have the same values. I agree with you socially.
Yes.
Right? Whereas
yes, for now.
With faith, I mean, faith is that problem, that thing that you could do and you can disagree with everybody. I mean, and faith, we're going to have to talk about faith properly at some point. But in this context, saying it's sort of basically the thing that enables you to stand against the herd when it's all going that way, which is ironic because people, in vilifying faith tend to describe it as that thing that makes you go along with the herd. It's like, in fact, Christ's teaching means you are often having to not be there with the herd and saying, no. So advertising works to create a social desire that you look like everybody else, because that's the point, right? You want to sell a lot of these things so that everybody is the same, because the more of those you can get, and that feeds on the, herd instinct, but it feeds on the desire for social inclusion. And we'd say without Christ's teaching about how you stand up against that kind of social inclusion, the group has no, what you're describing, the group has no resistance.
Yeah, there's no true north.
Right.
They don't have the lodestar to reorientate in chaos of competing social pressures.
Right.
A lack of heroism, a lack of ability to be able to say, no, I'm going to potentially trash my own reputation in order to defend the truth, can come out later. People are delaying a lot of things all the time, as we've seen on Telegram. They're delaying cutting off associations with particular people that they should cut off with, just to maintain reputation, to maintain status, to maintain influence, which is power. Public perception. Everyone's managing their own personal branding in this internet world of public relations on the internet. So it's sort of speeding up the mechanism because it's so fast. And then we all get the experience eventually. Will I tell the truth, or will I allow the reputational pressure to dictate what I'm doing right now?
Right.
It's similar to this movie. I don't know if you've ever seen this movie. It's called The Box. It was based on a Twilight Zone episode. It's a fantastic film. I would recommend watching it. It's really good. It's very creepy. So the premise of the movie is that there is a couple, and I think he's working for NASA too, so there's some things in there. They're having some financial trouble. The couple is happily married, but they're a little bit stressed and everything. Anyway, so they get this strange arrival at the doorstep one day. It's a guy with the deformed face who comes to the door, and he has this box and goes inside and says to the couple, I have a proposition for you. And they say, well, okay, what is it? And he says, I'm going to give you a box. There's a button in it. If you push the button, you'll get $1 million, and someone you don't know will die. They're horrified. And they're saying, this is a horrible troll. And he said, oh, no, I can guarantee that it's not a game. It's real. So if you want that $1 million, all you do is have to push the button, and then someone you don't know will die. So they go through this whole thing.
Right.
That box moment is the internet. Who pushed the button? All of us at one stage have pushed it. Someone may not have died, but we've all made the decision at one point in our lives to get personal benefit at someone's detriment by not telling the truth in a particular situation. How many people have consistently refused the button? How many people have consistently refused to push the button? So those moments, I think, are the ones that everyone's terrified of having revealed. This is why, like, AOC doesn't want Tucker Carlson to have his own group, because then everyone digs around, and after a while you find out, that was the moment that you pushed the button. Let's see what you did. Let's see what you overlooked in order to maintain your facade, your social facade, and your reputation. Let's see what you overlooked in order to maintain your status in this strange digital court that we're all living in. It's very terrifying because it's so quick. And for all of us, I think we're living in this knowledge that it's so quick and it can happen at any moment.
Well, it's immediately happening to Carlson because of the Dominion suit. So they're going through all of the discovery. They get to go through all of his texts and things like that and find out that he said things about, Trump and stuff like that. And yes, so the scandal level of revelation is obviously terrifying to everyone because, even to the level of, I was a bit silly maybe very silly in this conversation. And if it's projected up in this serious situation, nobody ever laughs, right? Because the joke is never part of the courtroom or the boardroom meeting or something like that. And you can say, that was a joke. Why are you so mad at me? And that stripping of context.
Yes. It's a humorless analysis.
Yes.
And so all the pathos is taken away, the feeling, the emotion, the tone, the humor, the intention, everything is read in a completely black and white way. And then that changes the interpretation, changes the perception, changes the way people are seeing you. It's again, taking away that human element from whatever has been going on and pushing it into a kind of vacuum where emotion doesn't exist and where things are read in an administrative and bureaucratic way, human interaction becoming corporatized. And so things that we're doing, things that we're saying, things are being translated from what I would call human into like a corporate bureaucratic kind of language and a mode of behavior. And we get judged by that standard instead of judged by the human standard.
Well, in the McLuhan media terms, like the digital is that literally digital 01, 01, 01. So there's.
So how do you train to exist in ones and zeros where everything is going to be judged in this corporate bureaucratic mode, divorced from the incarnate human life? And that's probably part of the panic that Tucker Carlson said we need to be human and we need to tell the truth. But that's clashing with the technology. It's clashing with people's real experience of what the technology is doing to them. Everyone's had a fight on Facebook at one stage that made everybody angry and caused a family rift.
Right.
Everyone's
I
done
don't
it.
know. I think Facebook died, right, in that sense. I remember when, we were first on it 2008 or so, and, you ended up in these, somebody's wrong on the internet, and you have to answer and sort of carry on. And I do wonder, King's North saying we need the asceticism of it. Eventually maybe we're getting better at it. I do feel like even 5 years ago, we were still in Trump, and there was sort of a boisterousness to everything. It doesn't feel like there's that anymore. It does feel like the fun is gone, which could be good. Yes. It's like, but go back out into the world and drive around in golf carts instead of being on television. It could mean that we're learning better how to discipline ourselves in this environment, which is a kind of is a civilizational thing. It's like you learn how to live in the city. You can't live in the city in quite the same way you live in the country, and so you adapt to the mores of the internet. It will be sad if what turns out that the internet is actually a very boring place and who wants to be here.
I think that's what's happening. It just it's becoming one giant mega bureaucracy, and the issue is people are not going to be able to leave it because we need the technology now. The effect of existing in a mega bureaucracy online transforms the culture into a mega bureaucratic culture. There's a weird feedback loop there.
Right.